Hello, how do you do, everyone? And welcome to the NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday, February 22nd, 2021. It's Gary Gillen here, and I'm your host for this week's edition. And I hope that everyone listening is doing fantastically well and you thoroughly enjoyed your football on Sunday as much as I did. What a brilliant day and a brilliant pair of results it absolutely turned out to be for us. And it is within touching distance now. Single digit points. We need 7 points to get over the line and get our 55. I can almost smell it. Oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be great. I have a wee prediction that we're going to get it at the St Mirren game in a couple of weeks' time. I think. I don't know why. I just think I think that might be the way it's going to work out, and I sincerely hope it is. But I'll take it if we have to win it at Sharkhead, and on the 21st of March as well. That would be okay. So now, this is a wee bit of a special show for us here at NARSA this particular week because it's our 10th NARSA Weekly Update podcast. Yeah. We're 10 shows old today. That doesn't include the 3 interviews that we've done to date. I'm specifically just talking right now about the weekly update shows. And it's a bit of a wee milestone for us. When Brian Campbell and I had discussed the concept of doing an NARSA podcast back in December, and then we talked about it with the NARSA Communication Subcommittee and then collectively agreed that it was worth a shot. I honestly wasn't quite sure how it was going to land with anybody who might be potential listeners, and I think we seem to be off to a decent start, and I hope that everyone who listens to the shows enjoys the content that we've produced so far. We do have more and more interviews on deck for the coming weeks, and more on that for this week's interview a wee bit later. And there does seem to be more than enough Rangers content, both NARSA and other, to fill a reasonable length show each week. And I know that I said on the very first show that I was going to try and keep it to between 2 and 3 minutes. I obviously lied. I didn't think I was lying at the time, but that's just the way that it is. And I did say to my girlfriend Erin back in December that if we got to 10 shows, kind of honed the process in between and didn't make the shows too crap, then we might be onto something, and I'm happy that we've got to this wee milestone of 10 shows. So thanks to everybody again for listening, and please keep doing so, and please do let me know if there's anything else you'd ever like to hear or see on the shows in terms of Rangers content, and we would be happy to do a research and see if we can bring that to you. So after last week's little rant at the beginning of the show about the, at the time, alleged stupidity of our players with the breach of coronavirus protocols, I ended up a wee bit more surprised and disappointed when it all came out that we learned that it was actually 5 of our players who were involved, 3 in the periphery of the first team and 2 on a more junior level. And as I said last Monday, I honestly can't think of anything more selfish and stupid during these global pandemic times. This could honestly have been catastrophic for our club had it worked out a bit differently in terms of training afterwards, or their physical interaction with the players. So I mean, I guess that's one silver lining, but it's just awful the way that these guys behaved. The one good thing is that it does seem that the club got on it very quickly and did everything as well as they possibly could to contain the situation itself, to manage the messaging of the situation, and seem to dampen a lot of the drama around that. So kudos to David Graham and Stuart Robertson and whomever else was involved in that to get us to the kind of somewhat muted response as it all unfolded in the middle of last week. And then, of course, as luck would have it, we have an injury at the right back position. Our captain gets injured, and one of the 5 clowns who's sitting at home having to isolate would most likely have enjoyed a run of 3, 4, 5 games deputising for Tavernier, but nope, he gets to sit at home. What a silly, silly boy. We'll see how it all unfolds as the authorities decide what they're going to do, I assume, with these players, and then we'll see. I imagine they're done for the season, but who knows? We'll see. Maybe the club's swift action and containment of it might stand for something, and it might be something a wee bit less penalising than the previous bans for Jordan Jones and George Edmondson. I doubt it though. On to the game segment. So as I excitedly mentioned just a wee bit before there, we had 2 games last week. The the colossal, exhausting tie away to Royal Antwerp in the Europa League last 32, where we came away with an incredible 4-3 result in what was just an utterly wild game that had pretty much everything, I think, there. And it sets us up really, really well for progressing through to the last 16 in the return leg this coming Thursday. And of course, the second game was yesterday morning's 4-1 victory at home to Dundee United, with goals from Hagi, Kent, Aribo and Morelos. And a bit of a slow start to the game yesterday, 25-30 minutes, and then it became very comfortable once we turned up the gears and the goals piled in. A bit disappointed to lose the goal at the end of the game, and I've heard a couple of the post-match interviews, and the players interviewed were in the same boat as me, just been a wee bit disappointed, and that's a good sign that we're not happy at losing goals, even when we have quite a margin in terms of goals scored for us in that particular game. So 15 wins out of 15 for us in the league as we march on to 55, 7 more points. This week, unfortunately, we only have one game, which is a wee bit of a downer. The game we have this week is the tie that I mentioned. It's the home tie at Ibrox against Royal Antwerp in the last 32 of the Europa League. And it's on Thursday with a 12:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time kick-off. Now, note the time change there, 12:55. It's a 5:55 kick-off back home, and that's the time that we're going to be managing at. So just make sure that you don't miss it. Just a reminder, like I provided last week, the game is not live on Rangers TV and is available in Canada on the DAZN network, and in the United States it's on CBS All Access. I got it right this week. I kind of fluffed my lines a wee bit last week because I wasn't 100% sure what channel folks watched it on in the States, but we got there eventually with a wee blurb in the accompanying email, so hopefully I didn't put anyone off with that. And again, as per last week, RTV are providing as live coverage from midnight UK time if your shifts happen to work out that way, or you just fancy enjoying the game again. So as it stands, I believe we're not playing this weekend because the Livingston game was affected by the League Cup final. So that's why we're not playing, and it's a week on Wednesday that we're away to Livingston, so more about that next week. As I mentioned, we only need 7 more points. It could still go down to the game at Sharkhead on March 21st. I don't think so, as I said before. And honestly, the sooner the better as far as I'm concerned. Points per game, I hear you ask. No one's ever asked me points per game until yesterday when everybody was all excited on the NARSA Communication WhatsApp group. However, I'll tell you anyway, Rangers Football Club have a staggering 2.73 points per game, which is up 0.01 per game for the second week in a row that we've increased that 0.01 factor, and the Mob from the East End are down 0.05 per game from last week to 2.13 points per game. LOL hardy har. So now we've formally completed 3/4 of the season, which I believe is the minimum requirement of games to then take the null and void of the season completely off the table formally. So there you have it. It's genuinely going to come home in one way, shape or form. From a Rangers TV perspective, I mentioned last week that we never did find out what happened with the St Johnstone game on February 3rd. Tried to get some dialogue going with RTV this week, but we just managed to miss each other. So still truly don't know what happened for that particular game, and we will still plug away because I don't want to let this one go just in case there's anything material that's going to spoil our enjoyment of the lead in to 55. So please stay tuned, and we will still keep badgering David and the guys over there at RTV to make sure that we get what we need from that. And once again, just a regular plug for RTV vouchers. It's completely settled down over the last couple of weeks, so I'm assuming that everybody who needs a voucher has them, but if not, please get in touch with your club president or secretary, and they can get in touch with me directly, and we will get you sorted fairly quickly. On to our convention update for this week, and again for the second week in a row, no specific updates on Las Vegas 2022, but that will ramp up a wee bit as we move into March and get some of the planning conversations underway. I've started actually to field some email questions in and around the dates and the times and the hotels and the tickets and things like that, so there does seem to be a bit of a swell for information out there, so we'll do our best to satisfy that, and we'll get that organised. I am delighted to confirm that the deposits have been fully refunded from the Westin Harbour Castle Hotel for the 2021 convention deposits that we paid last year, and the money's all back and tucked up safely in the NARSA bank account. So that's always a good feeling, to make sure that the money stuff is tidied away. And thanks again to the Westin Harbour Castle for being so accommodating to us through the whole cancellation process. And from an other business perspective, this week I do have some sad NARSA news to share. Just late last week, or maybe I think it was on the weekend, Ian Campbell from Sarnia Rangers Supporters Club got in touch to tell us that just on, I believe it was on Friday last week, that Sarnia RSC lost a Rangers stalwart when one of the members, Davie Hogg, succumbed unfortunately to prostate cancer. And I would just like to say, on behalf of everyone at NARSA, I pass on our sincere condolences to all of Davie's family and friends, and of course to everyone at Sarnia Rangers Supporters Club. Rest in peace, Davie, and I promise we're bringing 55 home for you and all other absent bears. On to our feature segment for this week. I mentioned last week that we had an interview scheduled with Nick Thomson, the Communications and Content Manager with the Commercial and Marketing Department at Rangers Football Club, and I did have the pleasure indeed of sitting down with him on Thursday and going through the interview. And it was, if you haven't managed to check it out yet, you should try and catch it if you can, because Nick does walk us through his journey from a journalist with the Wishaw Press, or Wishy Press if you come from that area, and then to being hired by Rangers, and then the journey that he's been on with the club ever since. For those that don't know, Nick joined the club when we were still in the Championship, and Stevie G was just a pipe dream, and here he is now, being the main interviewer for Rangers TV, and he gets to talk to our heroes almost every day. What a job that must be, eh? I was a bit envious when I was chatting to him, but a very, very nice, down-to-earth guy, and a story very well told. So if you can check it out, please do, and pass it on to anyone you think that might be interested on that. You can find it on our YouTube channel, NARSA Communication, or any of the regular podcast platforms where you get your pods from as well. This week we managed to get a chance to chat with another one of the Rangers official licensees, a fellow by the name of Danny Cowie from the Jasmine Group, or maybe it's the Yasmin Group, I'm not sure, and Fantastic Fanatics company. And we met with him just actually a wee bit earlier today, and if you don't know already, his company does Rangers specific metal artwork that truly is kind of one of a kind. You might have seen his stuff already. If you haven't, you should try and check it out at metalgallery.co.uk. That's metalgallery, all one word, .co.uk. And like the other licensees that we've talked to, the Jasmine Group, I'll just say Jasmine, the Jasmine Group have a license agreement with Rangers and some other clubs in the UK, and which is mutually beneficial for obviously Rangers Football Club and for the company themselves. For every unit sold, there's a commercial agreement that benefits our club. So that's the reason why we're promoting these, is that we want to talk about all the good stuff that's happening in the background in terms of the licensee structure, and make it appropriate for our audience, which would be overseas audience in North America specifically. So yeah, that's why we're bringing these bits and pieces to you. And what they've done up, if you haven't seen it, when you go to that website, you'll see they've done up a metal replica of the Ibrox gates. And what these are is they're limited edition, so there's only going to be a certain number produced, and once they're sold out, they're sold out. And if you check out the website, you'll see them and they look utterly amazing. And interestingly, they also have a project in the works with Liverpool as well to do the Anfield gates, so they're obviously a wee bit in Rangers' wake on this, as per usual, but it's nice to see that some of the heavy hitters from down south are getting involved in this too. I'm fairly sure that over the next wee while there'll be more products to come onto market, and I would imagine that everyone who provides products on behalf of Rangers will be looking to provide products when 55 finally lands, to get out there and maximise the market and the conditions and the feeling among our support as much as possible. I don't think that Danny and his colleagues are any different to that, and I look forward to seeing what they're going to come up with, because some of the stuff that they have there right now is tremendous. What we're going to do over the next wee while is work with Danny to see where we can work out some logistics and maybe even some products that would be specific for NARSA or overseas bears, and see what sort of arrangement we can make that would be to the benefit of the the Bears in North America as well. So more to follow on that. We just had a very cursory conversation today. One great thing that Danny has offered to do is to gift NARSA a set of gates as a competition prize, and basically to use it as we feel necessary. So like the taxi game that we talked about last week, what we'll do is we're going to work on an engaging competition format to get these great gifts into Bears' hands at some point. I'm thinking along the lines of answer a trivia question, like the post, forward it and share it with a friend, something like that. I don't really know. I'll need to speak to the communications subcommittee to steer me right on what's hip and cool and trendy and appropriate in these times, and then we'll go from there. But very, very generous of Danny to do that, and as I say, I would thoroughly recommend that you go and visit metalgallery.co.uk and see what they have to offer. From a communications perspective this week, I wanted to highlight two things just from the Rangers website that you might have seen over the last week, and if you haven't, this will be a wee bit of an update for you. But last Tuesday, a week ago tomorrow, I guess, because I'm recording this on Monday night at almost 7 p.m. my time, the club put out an article on the website discussing their intent to step up efforts to protect our valuable brand. And if you forgive me for quoting this, the site said Rangers is ramping up its efforts to increase our brand protection and strengthen our club's reputation within the commercial market. We now have dedicated resources and expertise to ensure any counterfeit merchandise and products using Rangers trademarks illegally will be subject to appropriate action and the strongest consequences possible. Rangers will not accept breaches of its trademarks and will take all necessary measures to protect our supporters from unofficial merchandise. For the avoidance of doubt, any purchases that are not from shop.rangers.co.uk or an official club partner or licensee are not official and do not benefit the club. We encourage all Rangers supporters to only buy official Castore and Rangers merchandise and official licensed products from the club's approved partners. The days where it was deemed necessary to buy from beyond official outlets are now gone. The days are gone. So this is a really important move by the club, I think, as we collectively continue to re-establish all facets of the operations which makes up a football club to ensure the maximum return on all areas of the business on the commercial side. The key line for me was the last sentence, which is why I read it out a wee bit lower, saying basically you don't need to go anywhere else now through any unofficial channels. Buying direct is the best way to ensure that you're continuing your support of the club. I just love that. I love that line. I love that sentiment. And of course, during the banter years when Sports Direct had their grubby mitts all over our retail operations, we were forced to look elsewhere for a Rangers apparel fix. But we don't need to do that now. So I was pleased where the club came out, said a succinct message, and were so firm with it that the message can't be misunderstood in any way. The banter years did end up spinning up other brands who have Rangers style clothing, and I don't think the club has an issue with the more established ones that are out there in the marketplace, as they are very careful and respectful about the type and style of Rangers centric branding that they use. And I think as I say, the club and these vendors can coexist. So I think there's room for everyone, but I hope that helps us settle into a harmonious coexistence with these vendors going forward, and the ones who are trying to peddle stuff that's just non-official are eventually eradicated. And the second one was on Wednesday, and this is where I'm a wee bit out of my element, but I do feel it's quite an important step forward for the club, where the club announced a new partnership with, and I might butcher the name here, but it's either Bitci or Bitci or Bitci. I'm going to say Bitci, right? So Bitci Technology, and what Rangers said was Rangers are delighted to announce an exciting new official partnership with Bitci Technology in a wide-ranging agreement that will see the Bitci.com brand appear on the Rangers first team shorts through until the end of the 2022-23 season. We welcome Bitci Technology as the club's official fan token partner, and together we'll create a Rangers fan token, a digital currency. Rangers will be the latest high-profile European football club to have their own club fan token, The Bitci platform is unlike other existing blockchain platforms in the market and will create its own exciting way in which to support the team. Cryptocurrency, blockchain and Bitcoin have never been in higher demand, and this partnership highlights the club's willingness to be forward-thinking and capitalise on emerging commercial opportunities. And James Bisgrove, the Director of Commercial and Marketing at Rangers, did say the partnership represents a compelling and exciting new collaboration for Rangers. It will have an immediate and positive impact on the continued growth of commercial revenues. So crypto money is a currency that's basically been introduced in the world as an alternative to central currencies and uses various encryption, that's the crypto word, encryption methods for security. And during my research today, because I wasn't really too sure what it was, I learned that a cryptocurrency is a type of currency which uses digital files as money. Usually the files are created using the same methods as cryptography, the science of hiding information, and they use decentralized control, which means they aren't controlled by any one person, any one organization, or any one government, anything like that. So transactional cryptocurrencies apparently serve a way to store and exchange value, and examples, as it was mentioned in the Rangers article, there are Bitcoin and Litecoin. So we're going, certainly moving forward, that's for sure, and I'm looking really forward. Obviously the article on the website wasn't super prescriptive about what we can expect to see next, but I expect that we're going to see some stuff over the short period of time, and that we're being engaged with these folks as they already are established with other clubs right now. And if we get any more information on that, we would certainly look to promote that on behalf of the club, because it seems to be a good product for people who are into that sort of thing on a worldwide scale. I can't imagine there would be any geographical restrictions on that too. But I just wanted to reinforce those both parts. And from another communication perspective, we had a little bit of a kind of out there invitation for this week. You might remember Dan Rutstein, the Senior Vice President of International Projects with Orange County Soccer Club, that we discussed back on our late January 25th podcast. And Dan is also a big fan of whiskey. And he has his own podcast called The United States of Dramerica, Dram being the whiskey reference. And he has whiskey-themed guests each week to talk about their story, and also to talk about the whiskey that they're drinking during the show. So I'm going to be recording with Dan this coming Thursday evening, after Leo, my son, is in bed, so that I don't have to parent him once we're done recording. And I believe it actually airs a week from today. So the purpose of me mentioning it today is just a little bit of a plug, and to build the absolute undoubted anticipation that's going to come with this pod, to fever pitch between now and next Monday. But the theme is NARSA, by the way. It's not me, if that sways you in any way to actually listening and checking out the pod next week. And if you want to check out his website, it's unitedstatesofdramerica.us. unitedstatesofdramerica.us, and you'll see some of the other guests that Dan has had on there. And the list is actually pretty impressive, from a Virgin Galactic pilot to an ex-CIA operative, a Super Bowl winner, award-winning authors, actors, entrepreneurs and others. Then there's going to be me talking about NARSA. So we'll see how it goes and how the whiskey will help shape the interview. And I have to admit, honestly, Dan's a very engaging guy, and I'm really looking forward to this interview and getting a wee bit more of a widespread word out there about the journey of NARSA to date. So we'll see how that one goes. And just one last thing from a communication perspective, as I think I mentioned before, when I was asking for any other content that you might like to see on shows, that we have been very fortunate over the years to have made friends, we being the kind of NARSA collective, have been fortunate to make friends with people within the Rangers family, and some of those friendships have stood the test of time. And when I say Rangers family, I'm talking about VIPs, I'm talking about internal staff members and things like that. And one such friend that we have kept good close contact with for a number of years now is football legend and now pundit Andy Gray, who, as you might remember, was our MC for what actually turned out to be our last convention in 2019 in Windsor, Ontario. And in the last week or so, Brian Campbell, NARSA VP, had put me onto their podcast called Keys and Gray, the podcast, and Andy Gray co-hosts this with his partner Richard Keys, and specifically to an episode featuring ex-Rangers 9-in-a-row legend Davie Robertson, who, as you may also remember, was a VIP guest at our convention in 2015 in Redondo Beach, California. And Brian had helped broker the conversations between Andy Gray, Richard Keys and Davie Robertson to help set up the interview. And if you haven't seen it, if you didn't even know about the podcast to date, you should check it out. I really do urge you to check it out. The interview was brilliant. It was a great laugh. It wasn't super polished and professional. It was professional in respect of, you know, making sure they're covering topics and making sure the guest has enough airtime and things like that. But when I say professional, it was so relaxed. It was a wee bit different than the stuff that you would have seen them doing on TV, and it was really good. So. And I was chatting with Andy Gray last week, quick name drop there, of course, and wishing him well for his pending knee replacement back in the UK. He might have had the knee replacement by now, I'm not sure, but I learned about the knee replacement on the Davie Robertson interview pod, and he did ask me to say that he was asking for all NARSA bears and wanted me to pass that on, so that's duly done, Andy. And then I went through the pod archives after I had listened to the first one, and what they did do was they did one in mid-December. I think it was about the 18th of December, I think they said that on the pod, that was dedicated to the Ibrox disaster 50-year commemorations that were being planned at the time. And if you don't check out the Davie Robertson one, absolutely your call, of course, you should definitely check out the Ibrox disaster one, because it's absolutely brilliant. They struck such a great tone. They had Derek Johnson on that one, who talks so raw and passionately about his experiences on that day he was playing that day, and some of the stuff that he's seen after it, and then the experiences he had with his family and things like that. Andy shares some of that stuff. Andy Gray was there as a fan as well. You know, I have to say, it was tremendous. A really good pod, and it's one of the ones that's in my list of pods to listen to now. I don't know about you, but I personally get overwhelmed with just the sheer volume and amount of information that's out there that we can consume from an entertainment perspective, and there's so many podcasts and so many other things that you could be doing with your time. This particular one, the Keys and Gray, the podcast, is superb, and I would definitely urge anyone to go and take a listen, and you can find it on the regular podcast channels by their name, Keys and Gray, and you'll find the boys there, and they are willing to do a little bit of cross advertising for us as well. So we may at some point in the future be fortunate enough to have the guys on one of the interview shows as well. So yeah, quite a lot of communication stuff this week. Okay, as we get close to the closing of this week's pod, I am very happy to tell you that we have another interview scheduled for this week. Are you ready for this one? This time, this week, we are going to be chatting with none other than former Rangers director, former Rangers interim chairman, Mr. Paul Murray. Yep, Paul Murray, you heard it right. Paul has very kindly agreed to have a chat with us, discussing amongst other things his career that led to his appointment as a director of Rangers Football Club, his experiences under the David Murray regime, his battle and unwavering battle to wrestle control from the folks who were basically seemed intent on driving the club into the ground. And for those who haven't heard Paul speak or seen him speak, he's an exceptional speaker and someone who will most certainly entertain us with his story. The interview's scheduled right now for very early my time on Thursday morning, and all being well, we'll get the interview out by Friday, once we get it packaged up and get it out there properly. But Paul has been a very, very willing participant. We are all set up and ready to go, and I'm thoroughly looking forward to having him on the pod and just giving a little bit of a different angle of his experiences up to and including those wonderful days back in 2015 when the Dave King, Three Bears and others regime took control of the club and were fundamental in getting us back to where we're at right now on the verge of 55. We do have other interviews lined up over the next couple of weeks, and again, as I think I mentioned last week, you won't be disappointed with some of the folks and some of the characters and some of the stories that we're going to have shared with us over the next wee while. And just another wee reminder on that, if there is anything that you would like to see covered, or anyone that you would like to see interviewed, or any content that we haven't produced yet that you think would be within our bounds and achievable, then please by all means get in touch. You can get in touch with me at rangersSCC@hotmail.com, 2 S's, 2 C's, and just let us know. Not one person has ever got in touch with me yet, but I imagine there's tons of ideas out there, so please don't hesitate to get in touch. One last wee thing I wanted to kind of leave you with was we're closing in for sure. It's now when, not if, 55 is going to be on our doorstep. And One thing I'm trying to figure out, maybe this could be a good feedback mechanism, or a good feedback conversation, I should say, where what is everybody planning for 55? I know there's going to be restrictions in various territories, and the restrictions might be different for everyone, and you're going to be restricted by what you're able to do. But I'd love to hear what people are doing, and I'd love to see if there's any way that we can make it a bit more social from a NARSA perspective, a NARSA club's perspective, and maybe have online Zoom calls or something like that when 55 lands, and for every game after that. And maybe there's some sort of end of season get together that certain clubs in certain regions can maybe make happen. Who knows what the world is going to look like come the middle or end of May or something like that. But please do get in touch and let me know if you have any ideas or anything that you think would be worthy of consideration by other clubs to get more of a family feel, an NARSA family feel to the celebrations that are undoubtedly going to come from 55. I personally am looking at my calendar and I'm stroking days off my work schedule to say I'm fairly sure the day before that we are going to win, so I'm going to take that day off because I don't think I'm going to be in any condition to work, and I imagine I am not the only one there. So please do get in touch and let me know if you have any ideas or anything you'd like to float past us as well. I did have a suggestion earlier today from Ian Miller from the Philly club over in the United States, and we're just starting to get the conversation going and seeing what we can do. So there's got to be other ideas out there that we can use, and we can see how it goes. No pressure, but it would be good to be able to celebrate with friends across the continent if we can. So here's looking forward to a huge European night for us on Thursday. The job is definitely not done yet, and I would take a wee bit more of the same this Thursday as long as we get the result. I would also take a drab 0-0 that gets us the result to get us through to the last 16. And here's hoping for another slip up by that mob from the east this weekend, so we can truly start to count down the days to 55. Thanks very much, folks, for taking the time to listen. Please do share it with anyone you think might be interested. Take care. All the very best. Cheerio.